Forget every rung you just climbed. For 6 episodes, I had you counting them. The floor, the median, comfortable, 6 figures, the top 10%, the top 1%. As if the whole game were getting your feet a little higher up the same tall ladder. I need to tell you something now that quietly reframes all of it. The ladder was the wrong picture. The people who actually end up wealthy are almost never the ones who climbed it fastest. And standing right here, between a tall ladder and a quiet, moving escalator, you're about to see exactly why. Here is the plan for our last few minutes together. 6 beats, and then the one thing to actually do about all of it. Beat 1, I will put the whole ladder back in a single frame. All 6 rungs and the one lie that repeated at every single one of them. Beat 2, every rung from the floor to the penthouse hid the exact same ceiling. You were always trading finite time for money. Beat 3, the reframe this entire series was quietly building toward. The ladder versus the escalator. Beat 4, why the escalator wins in the end, even against a much bigger paycheck. Beat 5, you do not quit the ladder, and so do you use it. And beat 6, the real scoreboard was never your salary at all. Let's put the ladder back together one last time. Look at the whole ladder at once. 6 rungs, each one an episode. Down at the bottom, the floor, roughly under $35,000 a year, where almost everyone starts. Above it, the median, the crowded middle around $35,000 to $60,000, where half the country stops climbing. Then comfortable, $60,000 to $100,000, the golden handcuffs rung that feels like arriving. Then 6 figures, $100,000 to $150,000, the number everyone chases. Then the top 10%, the specialist wall, roughly $150,000 to $250,000. And at the top 1%, where a paycheck stops being the story at all. These are rounded bands from one popular national earnings survey, approximate, not precise cutoffs. And here is the thing. You have climbed all of these. In your head, in this series, rung by rung. You have seen the whole ladder now. And on every one of those rungs, the same lie was waiting. At each rung there were 2 numbers, never one. There was the gross, the sticker salary, the big number on the offer letter, the figure you told people at parties. And there was the take-home, the real paycheck, the amount that actually landed in your account after taxes and deductions ate their bracket. At the floor, the gap was small, but it stung because every dollar mattered. At 6 figures, the gap was a chasm. That is the disappointment people feel the day they finally hit the number. At the top rung, even more vanished. Line up all 6 rungs and you get 6 pairs of bars, and every single tall sticker bar has a shorter real bar beside it. The gap never closed as you climbed. It grew. That was the take-home lie, and it lived on every rung. Beat 1. Let's hold the whole ladder in one frame and find the single truth that ran through it. 6 rungs, 6 episodes, 6 different-sized paychecks, and yet the same story kept repeating at each altitude. At the floor, you learned the rules that get you off the bottom. At the median, you learned that comfortable enough to stop reaching is the most dangerous place to stand. At comfortable, the golden handcuffs went on. At 6 figures, the ceiling turned out to be mostly in your head. At the top 10%, raw effort finally stopped working. And at the top 1%, the paycheck quietly handed the job over to ownership. 6 completely different rungs. But underneath every one of them was the same repeated fact. The number you earned and the number you kept were never the same, and the number you kept and the wealth you built were not the same either. That is the pattern I need you to see before anything else. We spent 6 episodes treating the rungs as different problems. A floor problem, a median problem, a 6-figure problem. They were never really different problems. They were the same problem wearing 6 different salaries. Every rung told you that climbing higher on this particular ladder does not automatically make you wealthy. It just makes the sticker number bigger while the gap underneath quietly grows too. So the whole ladder in one frame is not 6 lessons. It is one lesson, repeated 6 times until you could not miss it. And that one lesson is what the rest of these beats are going to unpack. Beat 2. Every rung, floor to penthouse, hid the exact same ceiling, and it is not the one you think. Back on rung 1, the floor, you first felt it. Trading your hours for dollars has a hard limit because there are only so many hours. It felt like a low-wage problem. Then you climbed, and at 6 figures, rung 4, you met the very same wall wearing a nicer suit. You simply could not out-hour your way past it, no matter how early you woke up. Here is the ceiling that every single rung shares. A salary at any level is you selling time for money. And time is the one resource you cannot manufacture. You cannot make more hours. You cannot save yesterdays for tomorrow. Everyone on every rung gets the same 24 hours, and once you have sold today's, they are gone. So no matter how high the rung, a salary is capped by a supply you can never increase. The person on the floor and the person at the top of the ladder are running into the identical mathematical fact from opposite ends. One runs out of dollars per hour, the other runs out of hours to sell. A bigger hourly rate just moves the ceiling higher. It never removes it. That is why climbing faster was never the real answer. You were racing up a structure that had a roof built into every single rung, because the fuel, your finite time, was always going to run out. And the moment you truly feel that ceiling is not the top of the wall. It is the doorway to a completely different way of thinking about money, which is exactly where Beat 3 takes us. Beat 3, and this is the reframe the whole series was walking toward. Picture 2 ways up. The first is a ladder. You climb it with your own 2 legs, one rung at a time, and every inch of height comes from your own muscle in that exact moment. The second is an escalator, a moving staircase that carries you upward while you simply stand on it. That contrast is the entire difference between a salary and wealth. A salary is a ladder. Your income exists only while you are actively climbing, while you show up, while you work the hours, while your legs are moving. Stop climbing, and you stop rising instantly. Take your hands off the rungs and you hang exactly where you are, or you slide back down. That is true on rung 1, and it is true on rung 6. Wealth is the escalator. Wealth comes from owned assets, things you own that generate money on their own. A slice of hundreds of businesses through an index fund, equity in a company, a rental, a business that runs without you standing in it. Once you are on that escalator, it moves you upward whether you are working, resting, or fast asleep. You are not powering it with your legs in the moment. The ownership is doing the lifting. This is the picture that resolves the whole series. Every rung of the salary ladder, no matter how high, still requires your legs. The escalator does not. And almost nobody who ends up genuinely wealthy got there by climbing faster. They got there by stepping off their legs and onto something that moves on its own. Which raises the obvious question Beat 4 has to answer. Why does the escalator actually win? Beat 4. Why the escalator beats the ladder, even when the ladder climber earns far more. Here is the quiet engine underneath it. Owned assets compound. Compounding just means the money your assets earn goes on to earn money of its own, and then that earns more, in a curve that bends upward over time. Your assets do that around the clock, while you sleep, while you are on vacation, while you are doing absolutely nothing. You, the human climber, do not compound. You get tired, you get sick, you take a day off, and the ladder immediately stops giving you height. So picture 2 people. One is a high earner on the ladder, climbing hard, pulling in a big salary but owning almost nothing. The other earns less, a smaller paycheck, a lower rung, but has been quietly feeding an escalator of owned assets for years. Early on, the ladder climber looks like the obvious winner. The bigger paycheck is right there for everyone to see. But the owner's escalator keeps moving every hour of every day, and the climber only rises when his legs are moving. Give it enough time and the lines cross. The owner on the smaller income is carried up and over the exhausted high earner who never stopped climbing and never owned anything. This is the exact bridge to our companion series, Net Worth by Decade, the machine that quietly builds the pile while you live your life. The escalator is that machine. It is the difference between money that only moves when you push it and money that keeps moving after you let go. The escalator wins for one simple reason. It never gets tired, and you always will. Beat 5, and this is the one people get backwards. The lesson of this whole series is not, salaries are the enemy, quit the ladder. That would be terrible advice, and it is not what I am saying. The ladder is not your enemy. The ladder is your on-ramp. Here is the honest sequence. When you are near the bottom, almost every dollar you earn has to go to living. Rent, food, getting to work. There is nothing left over to buy ownership with because the escalator is not free. You have to buy your spot on it. So you climb the ladder precisely so that your paycheck grows past your basic costs and finally produces a surplus, money left over after the bills. And that surplus is the whole point. That is the fuel you use to step off your own 2 legs and onto the escalator. Every raise you earn on the ladder is not just a nicer number, it is more ammunition to buy ownership with. You use the ladder to afford the escalator. So the climb still matters enormously, but the reason changes. You are not climbing to have a bigger salary for its own sake. You are climbing so that a bigger and bigger share of each paycheck can be converted into things you own. The ladder earns you the money. The escalator is where you send it. And this reframes every rung we covered. The floor is where you build the habit of sending something over, even tiny. The middle rungs are where the surplus finally gets real. The top rungs are where, if you did it right, ownership has quietly taken over the climbing for you. You never quit the ladder. You use it on purpose to buy your way onto the stairs that move on their own. Beat 6, the one that ties the entire series shut. All along, we kept score with the wrong number. We measured rungs. We measured salary. We asked, which band are you in? How high have you climbed? As if altitude on the ladder were the game. It never was. The real scoreboard was always what you own. 2 people can stand on the exact same rung, earning the identical salary, and be living in 2 completely different financial universes, because one of them owns a growing escalator of assets underneath that paycheck, and the other owns nothing but next month's bills. Same altitude, opposite futures. That is why direction beats altitude. It matters far less which rung you are standing on right now, and far more which way you are pointed, toward ownership or away from it. A person on a modest rung moving steadily toward owning things will pass a person on a high rung who owns nothing every single time, given enough years. The salary told you how high you had climbed. It never once told you whether you were free. Only ownership does that. So here is the whole series in a single sentence. The ladder was real, and climbing it was worth it, but it was never the finish line. It was the on-ramp to the escalator, and the only score that ever mattered was how much of that moving staircase you managed to buy. The paycheck you earn was this series. The pile you keep is the other half of the story. And the moment you start measuring by what you own instead of what you make, the whole picture finally, quietly makes sense. So how do you actually step off the ladder and onto the escalator? Here is the plan, and it works from whatever rung you are on right now. First, treat every single paycheck as fuel to buy ownership. Index funds, equity in what you do, a stake in a business, real assets. The wage is not the destination. It is the thing you convert into things you own. Second, automate the transfer. Set money to move from your paycheck into those owned assets automatically, the day you get paid, before your brain gets a vote. So getting on the escalator does not depend on willpower or on a good mood. Third, keep climbing the ladder on purpose. Chase the raise, build the skill, move up the rungs, but for a new reason. So you can buy more ownership, not a bigger lifestyle. Every raise is more fuel, not more spending. Fourth, change your scoreboard. Stop measuring yourself by your salary and start measuring by your owned assets. The size of your escalator, not the height of your rung. That one switch quietly changes every decision you make. And fifth, start now at exactly the rung you are standing on. The escalator does not care where you boarded, the floor, the median, six figures, anywhere. It only cares that you got on and kept feeding it. A tiny amount, automatically, starting today, beats a perfect plan you begin someday. Step on now and let it start carrying you while you sleep. That is the whole salary ladder, 6 rungs and the escalator hiding behind all of them. If you jumped in partway, go back and watch the series in order. Each rung makes the next one land harder, and this is only half the story. This series was about the paycheck you earn, the number you check every 2 weeks. Its companion, net worth by decade, is about the other half, the pile you keep and the machine that quietly builds it decade after decade. That machine is the escalator. Go watch it next. All of this is education, not financial or career advice, just the map, laid out honestly. Wherever you are standing on the ladder right now, the next thing you buy that you actually own is your first step onto the escalator. I will see you on the other series.